Hello, everyone. My name is Anton Grishko. I am Chief Architect at ProfiseaLabs.com. And today we're going to talk about FinOps best practices. But before talking about the best practices, I want to encourage you or ask you to be active with the questions, because we're going to draw 2 certificates, FinOps Practitioner certificate. We will send the vouchers for the certification, and you will be able to pass those certificates. So please be active with the questions, and based on most interesting questions, we will give you the vouchers for certification. And basically that's it. We can start. So again, hello everyone. Let's talk about FinOps best practices. And the first best practice is called the cost allocation. So basically, there are a lot of best practices for FinOps and FinOps process. For this webinar, I actually selected only 10 of them, because there are more than 10 best practices for FinOps. I just decided to focus on just 10 most important ones. So let's discuss them. The first one is the cost allocation. And what does it mean? It means that, first of all, what you need to do, you need to decide between the technical side and the business side and the company side. You need to decide what amount of costs you're going to align to this or this project, or this and this workload, or this and this business unit, and so on. So basically, you need to be aligned with your company and with your business goals in terms of spending money on the clouds. That's like clear. You cannot spend $1 million if you're just a startup or a small one, and vice versa. If you have enough of money, it's better to leverage it and use the best of the best from the clouds. Second, for the cost allocation, it's really important to track the cost of ownership. It means that you need to use the tags, metadata, any additional method that you can find out in order to track the cost ownership. Next one is you need to allocate cost across the teams and departments. I would say many companies implement it in a different way. For example, you can say that you have a business unit A, or a project A, or a cost unit like C, whatever, and you can agree with them that their budget for a year or for a quarter for a cloud is going to be this amount of money. Why it's important to do like that? Because when you're given like strict amount of money that team or project can spend in the cloud, they start to think completely different. They start to think, for example, I will give you an example, like you want to develop some application that's going to process some requests, and you have different ways to do that. So basically you can create or spin up the whole server and use the server for that, or you can use the function. Like if I would be a developer who lazy enough, I would just run the instance and forget about that, even if it's more costly than just running the function on the cloud. That's just an example. And if I have a strict amount of money that I can spend in the cloud, then I would start thinking about those kind of ideas, that maybe this workload I should run as a function, and this workload I should run as a container, and so on. Then it's really important to share the information about the cost, about the cost with all the parties. Basically, each and every team and unit, they need to know how much they're spending, how much is left, what's allowed, and so on. That's need to be established within the company. That's the first best practice. The second best practice is usage of monitoring. I mean, it's clear that in order to do any cost reduction, first of all, you need to start collecting metrics based on which you will be doing that cost reduction. And FinOps is all about collecting metrics, analyzing metrics, and then building recommendations based on the metrics, and then going and implementing it. It doesn't matter which kind of monitoring tools you will be using. It doesn't actually matter. It's more matter that you're collecting as much as possible financial related data. So definitely using monitoring at the moment. What I'm saying that for FinOps, it's important to add to the monitoring more business related information, like business units, how much you're spending, calculate the spending, calculate the usage versus spending, and so on and so on. So that's what about the monitoring. So what I'm trying to say in this slide, that you need constantly monitor your resources. You need to look for trends, patterns. You need to compare different time periods. So for example, you can compare how much you spent this quarter comparing to a previous quarter, or comparing the quarter a year ago, and then you can make some decision based on that. Yeah, you should use you should look for underutilized and overutilized resources, and so on. That's the idea of the monitoring. And on this slide, I actually add a picture which is very important. Before the FinOps, there was a cloud cost management within the company. So cloud cost management teams, like a dedicated 1 or 2 engineers within the IT department, who basically trying to find a way to cut the cost on the cloud. And they usually were saying that, you know what, it's only 20, maybe 30% possible to save. That's maximum that they are capable to do. And FinOps is not about engineer or specific team who will be doing it. FinOps is more about spreading this FinOps culture between all the parties, with all the developers, engineers, business, and so on. If that is implemented within the whole company, then you could potentially achieve like 80-90% of savings. I will talk about that. Let's move next. The third best practice is tag management. I already mentioned on the first slide that you should tag whatever you can, but that was only for about like business units or cost units and so on. Here we're saying that tag management should be implemented across the whole company. You should create the processes, policies. Those processes and policies need to be followed by the whole company. You need to try to automate assignment of the tags to the new resources as much as possible. Why? Because people usually lazy, and even if you have a process and policy, people are trying to find the shortcuts. So automating the tag creation helps basically to keep everything consistent. That's about tags. And again, think about building the tag structure within your company. Like think about what kind of data you can add to your tags. For example, it can be anything. It could be unit, could be project, it could be version, whatever. Maybe some business related things. Maybe this component is related to some business process, and again you can tag it. As much of tags you will put, as more sense they will do, better will be, not only for FinOps part, but also for monitoring part and for tracking all of your resources. That's about tags. Moving next. The next best practice for FinOps is reserved instances or reservations. Like it's very simple. Everybody knows about that. But the problem is that usually what companies do, and what we hear, how companies are doing the reservations, they're usually saying that, you know what, we don't know if our infrastructure is already stable, we're constantly changing it, so we don't know if we should reserve something or not, because we're going to change again our application, and as a result we'll not be able to reserve anything, because we again will change our architecture. What people missing in that part is that they can reserve only 10% of or 20% of their resources. Like you already have some infrastructure, and for example, even if you know that you're going to change it, there are some pieces that not going to be changed within this year. So reserve it, and you will save some money. I will give you a very simple math. If you will reserve only 20% out of everything, and you will get the 30% discount for that 20% of everything, it means that you will get the 6% discount for the whole out of everything. 6% discount is good. I mean, it's not a small amount. It's really good, and it's only reserving 20%. And I just made up those numbers. In reality, it's going to be larger, because if you're paying 1 year upfront, it's more than 30% discount. So use it. Use the reserved instances savings plans as much as possible. Find the resources which are long running. Find the resources that you're not going to change within this year, and reserve it or create a saving plans. Also, what's the mistake that people are usually doing within different companies. For example, they go to reservations and they're happy with that, and they're thinking that everything is done. No, it's not true. You could buy reservations, and then in a couple of months you could find out that using only 20% of the resources that you reserved. So it's very important not only to buy reservations, but also to track how much you're utilizing out of what you reserved. So you need to look for that. And of course, if you bought a savings plans, you have some flexibility, but even with the reserved instances, you also have some flexibility. You can resell it, you can buy a new one. So you can play with that. But then the main point here is that don't wait. Don't fall in that trap saying to yourself that you know what, we're okay, our architecture is changing a lot, so we're not going to reserve anything. It's a bad attitude. You can save a lot of money if you will simply reserve it. Moving next. Cost visibility. I talk about that a little bit in one of the slides previously. Now let's talk about that more deeply. So what's the cost visibility? It's clear that the cost, how much you're actually spending, how much your company is spending on infrastructure, it should be available between the different units. It should be available for IT department. It should be available for financial department. It should be available to the project lead or project manager of the project to whom it's related. So basically, the information about the cost should be visible for all interested parties. And also, this process of cost visibility, it should be automated as much as possible. Like, the best case scenario is that you don't need to go and look on any tools or something like that. You'll be constantly receiving or emails or some notifications somewhere with a report saying how much you spent, how much you saved or something like that. And also, what's important is to link this cost visibility process with what you have within the company. I will give an example. For example, we're using Terraform. We have infrastructure as a code, and we covered it with the CI/CD, and we fully working in terms of infrastructure as a code. It means that any change goes through the pull request, and we're merging it, and everything is good. And what's missing is the FinOps part, missing that each time when I'm changing something, I would like to get the answer how much the cost is going to be changed for my infrastructure. So if I'm adding resource or changing resource in a Terraform, using the Terraform, I would like to see inside the plan what's going to be a change in terms of money. That kind of automation you should add within your company, and you should move forward with that. Yeah, I hope I explained that. And of course, use tools that can visualize and show you and give reports about the billing. More data you will collect, more things you will analyze, and more things will be available within the company related to amount of cost spent on cloud. It would be better for each and everyone, because teams will projects and engineers will see how much they're spending on resources, so they will start carefully thinking about increasing something or building something and so on. That's about the cost visibility. Moving next, automation. So I already mentioned a little bit in a previous slide about CI/CD and for example Terraform, and then adding to Terraform the information about how much of the costs you increase of the cost, how much of the cost will be increased or decreased based on the changes that you done inside the Terraform code. But that's not only one place that you can add the automation. There are a lot of places that you can add automation, and I encourage you to do that. And it's really important for FinOps process within the company to have the automation. Again, don't forget that why I'm DevOps engineer with like 15 years of experience, and why DevOps engineers and people not like missing the opportunities in order to save money on the cloud, because IT engineers are very busy like with the other tasks, or they do understand that in order to find out where to save money, they need to spend a lot of efforts and a lot of time. So any kind of automation that will decrease the time or amount of time required in order to find out where we can save money, where we can optimize something, would be very appreciated by your company and by your engineers. So add the automation to your FinOps process. So use whatever is possible. Use external tools, available libraries. Currently, there are a lot of different projects which are helping with that. For example, with the Terraform, it's called the InfraCost, and you can use it. It's a provider for Terraform, and you can use it in order to see. It calculates how amount of money that it's going to be increased or decreased based on the changes in the Terraform. That's an example. Okay. Moving next, optimization. So we talked about like collecting data and tags and building the process within the company. And then, of course, you need to add a loop of optimization. Means that regularly different parties need to combine their efforts, and they need to sit and they need to think about optimization. They need to review what they have right now. So it's basically a regular process of review what you have and how you can improve it. Like maybe you can decrease amount of logs that you're keeping. Maybe you can fine tune your database. You can make it small and more efficient, or maybe you can fine tune your database queries. So maybe you can fine tune your API requests. So maybe you can add a CDN, and that's how you will save. So a lot of different things that you can do in order to do the optimization. So use different tools in order to minimize it. Look for waste, look for idle unused resources, regularly review your infrastructure list. So basically collect the list of everything that you have, regularly review it, have sessions with the different teams. You will be very surprised how much of the engineers simply forgetting about their resources. That some developer or QA created some server, they tested something, it was not finished, and then everybody forget about that, and it's running for 2-3 days, and like, or maybe it's running even for a couple of months. And then you're speaking with the team that they're starting to review the list of the resources that they have. They found those like resources that they're not using, and then you can remove it. It's like a usual story within each and every company. Okay, what I forgot to say about optimization, of course, right sizing, changing the infrastructure type, and so on. This is what you can do in order to optimize your infrastructure on the cloud. And moving next. Sorry if I'm too fast. I'm just trying to be fast in order to save some time for answers and questions for Q&A. So cost forecasting. This is the next FinOps best practice, which basically says to you that you need to forecast to predict your future costs. And it's not only like using some kind of automation or machine learning, but it's also just sitting together with different teams and thinking ahead of time, like thinking like, for example, you know what, we will need like a Mongo database in 1 month from now. Okay, thank you for telling me. We will add it that your project is going to spend more money starting from from now, because you will have another database, Mongo database. That kind of conversation you need to have within the company between different teams in order to figure out what's the trend. You're going to need more infrastructure and more money. So you're trying to predict your future costs. And of course, while you have this conversation, this is the time where the propositions are appreciated in order to optimize the cost. So for example, team couldn't know that they can, instead of Mongo database, they can use DocumentDB and it will save the money for them. But they will need to do a development in order to fit to the DocumentDB. For example, this is just an example. Also, I mentioned to you that it's really important to compare the periods with the previous periods, and like comparing this month or this week to a previous one, or this week to a week a month ago. It's also really important. That's how you can find out some strange spikes of cost spendings. You could like compare 2 weeks, and you can notice that for some reason we're spending 2 times more in the logs this week compared to previous logs. Like in terms of money, it's not big. For example, I'm paying $300 for logs, and last week and this week I'm paid like $400 per week for logs. But like for me, it should be suspicion. I should check why there is a 20% increase of logs and price for logs for the last week. That's why you need to do the forecasting, predictions, and you need to constantly improve this process of prediction and process of forecasting of your spendings on the cloud. Yeah, and again, this is what helps big companies to plan for future. Like you cannot live without knowing how much, or without planning how much you will be spending in the future. That's yeah, that's it. Another one, FinOps best practice is cloud provider management. So basically, this is what people and companies usually missing, is that companies having multiple clouds, they're struggling to get all the data together to some one centralized place from where they can analyze everything together. So they like analyzing one by one on different clouds, and it's kind of messy. That's why it's very important to like centrally collect the billing data, billing information, or some metrics from all the clouds, and then analyze them together. Also, what's important, what people are missing, is that you shouldn't be stick just to one cloud. Go and negotiate with other clouds. It's also a way to save money. You could get a much better negotiation rate with negotiation options with other clouds. Maybe you will talk to your cloud saying that you're not happy with the price, you will get discount. So I'm just saying that again, don't just sit on a one cloud. Other cloud could give you a better options in terms of price, or maybe your cloud which you're using, they could give you some discount if they will find out that you're willing to, not willing, or at least interested to move to other cloud. So negotiate, look for opportunities. This is also a good thing, a good place where you can save money. If your infrastructure is dynamic, like I mean, it's like a Kubernetes and so on, and you cloud agnostic, that would be easier for you to achieve that. And if not, it will be harder, but again, it's also possible. Again, you can split the different workloads. You can play with that. What else? Yeah, if you're planning the project from scratch, always compare the prices between different clouds. Don't believe only to what you see inside the internet or inside their clouds cost calculators. Why? Because again, in reality, everything depends on a negotiation. Like you can go to the internet, you can Google, and you can find that, for example, the cloud A for you is too expensive. But in reality, if you would go to the sales of the cloud A, they would probably give you 30% discount, and that would be a winner. But you didn't do that, and you didn't get it, for example. So that's why usually when you're starting a new project, check for alternatives, and again negotiate, and use the multi-cloud strategy. I already mentioned that. Be dynamic, be cloud agnostic. That would be much more better for you in terms of cutting the costs on the cloud. From my experience, I would say that I'm as a DevOps. I had a project in my past company, in my last company, and we were building together with DevOps team the automation, which was simply moving the whole project, and project was within the Kubernetes cluster. It was moving from one cloud to another cloud, based on customer needs. So customers basically jumping between different clouds in order to save money and to get the credits and to get a discount and so on. That was his like way to save money, let's say like that. Okay, that's about the cloud provider management. And the last one, but not the least one, is the collaboration. And that's really important. That's important it was important for DevOps, but when we were talking collaboration for DevOps engineers, it was mainly collaboration between developers and DevOps and the product manager usually, and QA, and that's it. For FinOps, it's more complicated. You should communicate not only with the tech side, but you also should communicate with the business side. And usually this is the place where there's some miscommunication and so on. Again, based on my experience, why collaboration is important, because engineers could think that they can do A, while business knows that they don't have money for that, they cannot handle that kind of infrastructure, and they need to fit within the budget that they have. And that's the harsh reality. That could be as well. So collaboration, it should be between everyone who involved. It should be financial department, should be IT department, should be operations. So everyone who involved in terms of having some infrastructure on the cloud, and department who paid for that. All of that parties need to be involved. Product managers need to be involved. Better to have a process within the company to have regular calls to discuss the like new features and how it's going to affect the costs and so on. You need to align the cost goals, cost optimization goals and strategies within the whole company. It means that if you decided, for example, that we're starting for the next for example months or next release, we're going to decrease something or change something, and other teams or other projects not doing that, it's not beneficial. It's better if the whole company stick to some strategy and you're following it. Sharing the information, best practices, like creating documents, creating automation, sharing automation, that's important. Of course, it's clear why you should invent the bicycle. If within the company you have some projects or some engineers who already did it, it's better to share it. So it's better to have, again, a central place where you can share like FinOps best practices or some scripts and so on. And yeah, and basically you need to encourage FinOps, you need to encourage collaboration, and you need to encourage the cost optimization. Like engineers and everyone within the company, they need to understand that based on their actions, based on their decisions, it affects the cost on the cloud. Because again, based on what kind of database or kind of resources we choose, that will reflect on the cost on the cloud. Yeah, that was the collaboration. And now I'm ready for a Q&A, for questions and answers. And again, let me tell you one more time. For the best question, for best two questions, we will give 2 certificates, FinOps certificates, vouchers. I mean, we will give you the voucher, and you will be able to go and basically get this certification. It's not complicated. A lot of people already got it. You will need to prepare for the certification, but it's not hard to get it. So ready for questions? Please send them in chat. Anyone wants the certificate? Yeah, we have questions, but you need to send those questions in the chat. Yeah, sorry, today we're working through the chat. Okay, so we have questions. Let's start. The first question: which methods Profisea uses for cost optimization? Is a question from Roman. Roman, thank you so much. Yeah, I didn't mention about that. I mentioned at the beginning that we are Profisea Labs company. Profisea Labs company is basically a company and a project that focuses on FinOps, and we're building the platform that will help to implement the FinOps processes within the company with the use of machine learning and different algorithms. So what method we're using? Well, first of all, we are following the FinOps best practices, and we built our platform based on those best practices. Second, we try to automate as much as possible in terms of getting recommendations and implementing it. So sometimes in script, sometimes it's algorithm, sometimes it's machine learning, depends on functionality. Thank you. Next question. It is easy to take resources and assign the costs. What about network traffic? Could you suggest the way to assign the cost of it? This is the really good question. I saw a method how to do that. So you know that it's a big struggle to calculate the cost for the traffic and actually calculate the traffic on the clouds. A lot of companies are trying to achieve it, saying honestly, we're also having this intention. We also want to calculate the traffic and break down it based on like business units or some destinations. Right now, it's very hard to do. So what's the way to do that? I saw the way proportional. So you're taking the you know the price, how much you paid, for example, for the traffic in total, and you just proportionally splitting the costs of the traffic between all of the projects. It's not fair. Why it's not fair? Because again, the project A could spend less traffic than project B, while the project A could spend more CPU and the cost will be higher. And that's why, proportionally speaking, it will feel like the project A should take the same amount of the networking of the traffic, which is not true. That's why it's not good. But I saw such method, so it's one method. Another method would be to actually calculate it based on the destination, the actual amount of traffic based per each project. This is, I don't know the tools which can achieve right now. I know the ways how to like partially achieve it by yourself, like manually, but not within the tools. I know that a lot of companies are still working on that, and we too. So we'll see who will deliver that. Next question, chat disabled. Yeah, probably it was disabled. Sorry for that. Is there some mechanism for calculating optimizing human resources? Calculating human resources. Good question. Yesterday, I read an article on a GitHub that GitHub says that based on their Copilot, you know, there's a GitHub Copilot AI that helps you to, it's your Copilot to develop something based on any language. So they claims that using the Copilot AI for GitHub, the users who are using it, they're saving 55% of their time comparing to those who are not using it. So how to like optimize humans to start using some AI Copilot. That's what I think. Not just GitHub Copilot, ChatGPT Copilot. I think that this next year we'll have more such projects. What next? What are the 3 main KPIs recommend to expose to business stakeholder and monitor? For business, it's most important is basically to find out how much they're spending divided per business unit. And this is the most important information for them. Each and every one of them wants to find out how much they're spending specifically for this and specifically for this. And how to achieve it, it's again tags, collecting metrics, and doing the estimations. I would pick those three main KPIs, like tag everything as you possible, split it based on how business see that, not how you see it from IT side, how business see it, and they try to create some kind of monitoring solution that will give them information about how much they're spending there, and they will be much happier. Of course, they will get back to you, will start asking more KPIs and so on. So it's going to be just a starting point. But yeah. Next one, where is the FinOps team located in the organization chart? Thank you for the question. Let me answer that question like that. There are two things. First of all, FinOps intended to be a process. So the idea is that FinOps is the process, is that each and everyone within the company knows about it and they follows it. So for example, it follows that in order to change something in infrastructure that related to money, they need to go and get some approval from somewhere, or they need to explain reasoning why they need to add more or change something on the cloud that will affect the costs. That's true that some organizations, they're saying that, you know what, instead of forcing each and everyone within the company to do that or think about that, we will establish a team or experts within different teams. We'll call them FinOps. It will be a FinOps organization or FinOps department, and they will be doing it. It's also a good way to do the FinOps. It's a different way, but it's also a good way. In that way, you have a centralized team who will create the policies and will collect everything. Where it should be within the department, it should be between the development, DevOps, and financial department. It's somewhere there in that triangle. Why? Because developers they have needs for cloud resources. DevOps, the one who creates those resources, so they're familiar with everything. And financial department, the department who paying for all of that. So FinOps should be in the middle of those three groups, should communicate with them, and FinOps also should communicate with the business. So there should be a business on a site. They should communicate with them. Okay. Next question. From your experience, which FinOps practices are most effective and brings best value to a company, and which can be postponed? Okay, good question. It's low-hanging fruits. This is what you're looking for. For low-hanging fruits, I would say tags, definitely. You cannot work without tags. You need tags. So tags, definitely. Wasted resources. The simple thing that you can do is to constantly look for wasted resources and then to remove them. This is what usually people forget to do. And the third, so basically you need to build a monitoring, which will be tracking orphaned or unused resources, so we'll be looking for idle resources. This is the second that second thing that you can do, because if you will find that resources, you will get the good cost reduction right away. And the third one is to look underutilized and overutilized resources. So resources that are used for 10% out of 100%, or maybe resources who use for 100%. Like look for that kind of resources. Those three things are the simplest, and at the same time you will save a lot of money right away. It's not like doing re-architecture, refactoring, or changing the instance types. It's faster. Okay, what next? It is difficult to find possible cost cuts with splitting costs proportional. Yeah, it's difficult. I'm just saying that I saw companies who were doing like that because they want to split that cost, because each and every each and every project within the company, they like virtually have a budget saying that, for example, for their infrastructure, they can spend this amount of money per year. Why it's virtual? Because it's not real. This is something that company decided inside. Of course, they can go above, but they will need to explain why. And that was the way of the company to split the traffic cost between them. It was done proportionally. That's why I said that it's not fair, because it's not represents the reality. But it's okay. It's working for them, so they're fine with that. I'm trying, and we're trying with the guys to find a solution to calculate the traffic correctly. Okay, next one. Next one. Just a second. I'm writing down the questions that I liked. So just give me a second. I will write it down, and we will continue. Okay, next one. So the question, which open source products Profisea uses? We're using, there are a lot of different libraries, open source, that we're using. One of them I can say it's called Profit. Profit is the forecasting model from Facebook. It's open source. You can check it. When do you recommend to use spot instances? Also good question. Thank you for that. It depends on your workload. I will give you an example. I recommend to use the spots when you know for sure that your application can be scaled easily and fast. This is when you can use the spots. Then your application cannot be killed. I will give an example. I built a cluster with 10 servers and enabled auto-scaling to up to 100 servers. And I can do all of them spots. Why? Because it's very, very small chance that they will take all of the servers from me at the same time. They can take half of them from me. And again, my application should be dynamic, stateless, enough in order to support that kind of situation when some of the instances goes down, or some of the nodes goes down. So use the spot resources when the application is, first of all, is stateless, is saving the state and saving all the data somewhere remotely. Second, when you support the scaling of your application, when you can easily scale your application, this is when you can use spot. And also spots can be used for everything that shouldn't be 24/7 up and running, that can be restarted, and that doing some short but heavy job. I will give an example. You need a GPU and you want to do the machine learning. You want to do to build some model, right? You will be paying a lot of money for this machine with a lot of GPU. If you will use spot, you will save a lot of money. You will save like 60-70% of money. But your model should not be running, like the training process should not take like a couple of weeks, because definitely during the process, cloud will take the spot out of you and you will get the restart. But if your learning process takes like 6, 7, 8, or 12 hours, so maybe a day, it's fine. This is the workload for spots. This is the place where you can save money. Thank you for your question. Next one, what are the best practices to use for cost forecasting? There is no best practices for forecasting. There are different methods how you can do that. You can, you can compare it with different periods, and then you can see the trend, and then you can just draw the line where it's going. That how you can forecast. There are different ways to do the forecasting. There are different algorithms to do the forecasting. There's no like a best way, best practice. It's a different per different situation. That I would say. We're using machine learning companies for that. We're using Profit for that. So for example, that's one of the ways to do that. For mid companies, what level of monthly cloud spend justifies having in-house FinOps teams, which enforces monitoring and optimizes the spending? It's not from amount of money. I will give an example. Like, let's imagine that like I have two friends, one front-end developer, one back-end developer, and I DevOps. We're like 3 engineers, and we decided to build a startup. Do we need a FinOps engineer? No, we don't. Do we need a FinOps process if we decided to build a startup? Yes, we do. Do we need to do it right away? Probably not. Probably only when we will grow a little bit, and then we will need to do the optimization. I saw a very good comment or a tweet. I don't remember. It was a tweet or a comment on a forum from one of the investors from one Y Combinator. He said that companies or startups, they should care about cost optimization only when they already found their market fit. So when they're earning money. If company is still like evolving, not earning money, this company can change everything a lot of times. Like, remember the story with the Slack. Slack was not developed initially, not Slack, Discord, sorry. Discord was not developed initially just as a chat. Chat was a byproduct. And as a result, byproduct become the company. So answering your question, it depends on the growth of your company. I would start thinking about money right away. Just by nature, I like to minimize the spending of the costs. But I would say if the company spends more than, let's say, $1,000 per month on a cloud per month, 1,000. This is the amount from where you already can start saving some money. You don't need a FinOps engineer in that case. You just need to do it by yourself using the tools, some analytical tools, and so on. Yeah. When do you recommend to use? I already explained that. Untagged with orphan resources, are they the same? What will be the best way to monitor both? Which alerts should we expect? Untagged and orphan resources, no, they're not the same. They're not the same. The orphan resources, for example, I had a server and server had a volume. I removed the server, I removed the instance, and I have a volume left, and the volume is in status unused, unattached. This is the orphan resource for me. Or for example, volume had a snapshot and I removed the volume, and now I have only a snapshot which was taken from the volume which I don't have anymore. This is also considered as orphaned if no one is using it. Yes, but untagged resources, I saw it. It's not orphaned resources. This is something usually old, and someone created a resource. He didn't set any tags on resource, and now you do not know what this resource is about. What to do in such situation? First of all, we need to find out who is the owner of that resource. If we cannot find out the owner of the resource, usually we need to leave a comment on the resource or something like that. We need to aware that someone who owns this resource, that we're going to remove it if we will not find out who's the owner. So like, my personal opinion, if you have untagged resources, find out whose those resources are, set the tags. If this resource is no one's, just remove it. Any impressions on automated tools like AWS right sizing, compute optimizer, etc.? Yes, I have impression. It's a good starting point. It's not automating everything. Some recommendations are not accurate and not like totally off the idea, but some of them are good and relevant. So I would say it's a starting point for you for your FinOps. It's okay, you should use it definitely, but it's not enough. It's just a starting point. It's a baby step, let's say like that. You can use it, but you should use something else on top of it, like add your own monitoring, add your own some reporting tools. Like you use something else, not only this one. Can we provide FinOps practices with using unexpected security analysis by DevSecOps tools? Are the DevSecOps tools and platforms still under FinOps analytics for specific projects? if if the DevSecOps tools or running DevSecOps tools affecting the price of the cloud, yes, it's need to be considered, and FinOps team need to be, or FinOps engineer, or FinOps process need to be involved, just at least to assess that, for example, this month, the DevSecOps team is going to run some tool that will do some, I don't know, vulnerability test, which will generate some traffic, which will cause some increase of the cost. In that terms, FinOps need to be involved. Also, FinOps, this is like a policeman within the company. FinOps can come up and could say, "Hey, DevSecOps team, we just Google it in the internet, and we find out that you're using very expensive tool. Why using this tool? Why you cannot use the alternative?" And blah blah blah. So there could be some kind of communication within them. Yeah. Alexei, thanks. Could you recommend any methodologies or tools for architecture cost effectiveness analysis? Tools, I cannot recommend our competitors, that's clear. So I can recommend only ourselves, and basically try to use our product, which is called profisealabs.com. It's Profisea Labs, product called Unisky, website profisealabs.com. Try to use it. Very nice tool. We are evolving really rapidly and adding more and more functionality. Yeah, from open source, I already said the infra cost, it's for Terraform. And a last question, what is the background, not the last, almost the last, what is the background, seniority and skills of the FinOps manager and team members? Oh, thank you so much. That one is good. So about that, we tried within the company different things already. We tried to take a DevOps engineer who is technical, who knows the cloud, and to teach him to be FinOps. And we find out that not each and every IT engineer, like a DevOps engineer, he has this like an analytics, financial, not knowledge, but at least like patience to work with the numbers, because usually a person need to collect a lot of data and then analyze that data. Not each and every engineer likes to analyze the data because it's time-consuming process. But there are engineers who pretty much some of the engineers who really likes to go to the logs, analyze logs, compare logs. That kind of engineers, they can be a good FinOps engineers. Why? Because they're going to do the same kind of analysis in terms of money. That's about the IT guys. Not each and every IT guy can be FinOps. Guys who has this like analytics desire in their blood, they can be. Vice versa, we have financial guys with a financial background. They're really familiar with the numbers, how to calculate them, with the different formulas, blah blah blah. They're good with the finance, but they're not clear about the cloud. And we try to teach such guys as well. We try to teach such guys about the cloud, about FinOps, about everything. And we also find out that not each and every one will fit within the FinOps, because in this case you need a different approach. This engineer need to learn the technical stuff. He need to learn about the cloud, and it turns out it's not easy for each and everyone who is from financial background. So that's what we saw. My personal opinion, I would say like that: if person has a skill to create a good presentation, if person has a skill to work with the numbers in terms of analyzing numbers and then presenting those numbers in a good way and explaining those numbers, then probably this person can be a FinOps engineer, because you can teach him everything else. That's what I am at least looking at the moment. How can I use FinOps methodology to collect allowable disaster recovery cost? Where is the line between normal and excessive costs? good question. So first of all, allowable recovery cost, disaster recovery cost. Like for me, disaster recovery is basically bringing the same copy of production that you had. So for example, if I was paying a $10,000 per month for my production and something happened and I'm restoring my production, bringing disaster recovery, I will be paying again $10,000 for that. And usually I would prefer not to have something in a standby mode. I would prefer just to run the Terraform and create everything from scratch. Maybe in a different region if I need to bring it up and then to move the data, but this is what I would do. So overlap is very short. It's just a couple of hours while you moving the data. So that's answering your question. And what that amount of money, what's affordable, that's something that company need to decide, and it depends on the situation. And again, about the DR, maybe you don't need to restore everything. Maybe you just need to restore something partially, then the cost is going to be less. Okay, last question, because we have 2 minutes left and we need to give the certificates. Last question: how many time I have to spend if I want to be a good FinOps? I have a background in IT, 10 years old. As I mentioned to you, Roman, if as I mentioned already, if you have a background in IT, it's super good. If you have a background with the clouds, is even better. But you also need to love to do this. If you like to troubleshoot something, analyze something, compare data, then you will become FinOps. Otherwise, you can learn it, but you will not like it, because again, it's working with the numbers, with the graphs, with the charts. I would say like that. Anyone who is working in Kibana and in Kibana with the logs, creating the graphs and creating the queries, can be a good FinOps engineer, because basically it's pretty much the same. It's just a different data. Okay, that's it. Let's find out our winners of our certificates. So we decided to do like that. We decided to draw 2 certificates, certificates, FinOps certification or certified practitioner, and 1 voucher we will give for the best question, and a second oh no, we will 2 vouchers we will give just for the good question, and 1 voucher, the third one, we will give for the biggest amount of the questions, or for the best questions, let's say like that. So my 2 winners or the questions is Piotr and Pini. I will send in chat, and the winners of the 2 certificates or the vouchers for certification. Gentlemen, please send in a chat your emails so that we can contact with you and we can provide you with the vouchers for certificates. Okay. And the third one for the is Roman Hirnyak. He will get the third one. Okay, Pini send the email. Thank you so much. And Roman, also please send your email so we can get in touch with you. Okay. Yeah, copied. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be together with you today, and I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you enjoyed my answers, and have a great day. And I wish you a good luck with the FinOps practices in your company.